Members, good afternoon. We have a quorum. I call to order the meeting. We're using the request to speak system. Please don't switch seats after you have taken yours. Agenda item number 1, information paper issued since last meeting. Since last meeting, the Secretariat hasn't issued any paper. Agenda item number 2, schedule of meetings from the remainder of the 2025 session. In accordance with Rule 14(1) of the Rules of Procedure, the President of the LegCo has confirmed the meeting dates in the second half of this year. I propose that the meetings between July and October be held on the following days. That is the first Friday of every month. They are the 4th of July, the 5th of September, and the 3rd of October at 10:45 a.m. The Secretariat has issued the relevant dates and the relevant paper is on your desk. Any views? No. Agenda item number 3, items for discussion at the next meeting. The next meeting will take place on the 2nd of May 2025 at 10:45 a.m. The administration proposed to discuss 3 items. 1. 3369 EP, a 30-classroom primary school at Site E2, development of Anderson Road Quarry Site Saikong, and reprovisioning and redevelopment of substandard school premises. 2. Suggestions on enhancing the directorate posts at the Education Bureau. And 3. Student counseling service as well as related manpower and resources. Any views from members? No. Let's move on to the next agenda item. Agenda item number 4, enhancing the implementation of the native-speaking English teacher scheme. Members, please refer to paper CB-3385/2025-02. The Secretary for Education, Dr. Choi, and Principal Education Officer, Professional Development and Training, Ms. Sammy Sham, has already taken their seats. Secretary, are you ready? Please take us through the paper. The floor is yours, Secretary. Thank you. The government is committed to developing Hong Kong into an international education hub and an international hub for high-caliber talents. We also complement the country's goal of building China into a leading country in education by 2035. The annual 2 sessions this year emphasized that the country's further expansion of high standard opening up will bring new opportunities. Bilateralism and trilingualism are our competitive edge. It is important that we should create a favorable environment for the nurturing of bilateral and trilingual talents. In 1998 and 2002, the NET scheme were launched. Since the launch of the scheme, a lot of different NETs have been attracted to Hong Kong to teach. They came from different diverse academic and cultural backgrounds. They helped improve the overall effectiveness of the learning and teaching of English, enhance students' English proficiency, and increase their confidence and motivation of learning and using English. They also work with local English teachers to develop the local curricula. In the past 2 decades, English teacher qualifications have increased. That is in line with our development trend of the country. We need to achieve diversification. Therefore, in order to move with the times and make good use of the precious resources of the NET scheme, the Education Bureau reviewed the administration of the NET scheme, thereby proposing enhancement measures. As mentioned in the paper, we need to make flexible use of the resources. Schools can choose to retain NET positions or to apply for the new native speaking English teacher grant, that is NET grant. $1 million and $900,000 respectively for primary and secondary schools. in order to enhance the quality of nets. Newly joined nets will have more requirements to comply with. The attrition rate of nets is stable, and the retention incentive and contract gratuity will be combined. We also aim to enhance the appeal of remuneration packages. The new net grant allows schools to make flexible use of resources. They can either engage nets, English teaching assistant, or engage English learning support services. At the same time, nets and local English teachers will also work together to improve the learning experience for students. We encourage serving nets to apply for regular posts within the school establishment. Then they can stay in Hong Kong to work in the long run. At the same time, we also encourage teachers to continue to undergo training in order to improve their teaching efficiency. We'll continue to move with the times, having regard to the changes in the learning environment. We will make more flexible use of resources and attract more nets to join the teaching force in Hong Kong, thereby enhancing the level of teaching, the quality of English teaching in Hong Kong. We will also be training more biliterate and trilingual talents in Hong Kong so that they will make greater contributions to the country. That concludes my introduction. I'm glad to take members' questions. Thank you. I now open the floor for members to ask questions. We have about 55 minutes to discuss this item. I propose 4 minutes for each member, questions and answers included. First member, Mr. Benson Look, Mr. Tang Fei, Mr. Rock Chan, Mr. Chu Kwok Kung, Ms. Lilian Kwok, Mr. Lam Chen Sing, Mrs. Regina Ip, and Mr. Dennis Lang. Mr. Benson Look, please. Thank you, Chairman. Apart from teaching language subjects, language teachers have a lot of influence on the cultural aspect on students. It is usually language teachers that have the most influence on students. That's why I'm concerned about the quality of language teachers. For example, for an American teacher teaches English to local students, when they cite resources of suppressing China into the local school curricula, that is far from ideal. Do we require nets to take basic law tests as well as national security law tests? I'd like to talk about the budget on nets as well. The figures in the paper are from a decade ago. If you have the latest figures, please update us. So, in 2014 to 2015, a total of $360 million were spent on primary schools, and for secondary schools, $380 million. And then they make the total of $750 million for the language proficiency of local English teachers. Well, local teachers have very high level of English proficiency as well. Students can chat with local teachers after school. They can chat in English. So when it comes to the interaction between teachers and students, teachers need to do more in order to enhance the teaching and learning of English. Is there any guideline given to English teachers so that they will interact more with students. Thank you. Secretary, for nets, for more than 6 classes, for schools that have more than 6 classes, there is one net in each school. They have a supplementary role. As Mr. Benson-Look mentioned, in an English-speaking environment, nets provide students with more practice opportunities. That's why nets aren't required to take basic law tests and constitutions tests. But then they also attend the assemblies, teacher conferences, teacher meetings, and so on. That's why nets know that they need to respect basic law and the constitution. And they always work with local teachers in the design of teaching materials. So the entire school will act as the gatekeeper. Mr. Benson-Look mentioned the breakdown, and basically what Mr. Benson-Look mentioned was correct. The total expenditure is $840 million or so for the school year 2023 to 2024 in relation to providing a language learning environment, for English teachers who speak English as their first language. They come with their own cultural background. That's why when it comes to English teaching method, they add vibrancy to English teaching. Say they introduce drama to interact with students. That's why they come with more innovative teaching methods. Next member, Mr. Tang Fei. Thank you, Chairman. I have 3 questions. Question 1. I welcome the flexible use of the net grant. Is there any duplicate function, say for the development grant, to engage teaching assistant, that is TA, or to engage English learning support services? Is there any duplication of resources? The Permanent Secretary said in April they would review any resources provided to schools. They want to identify any duplication of resources. So in making flexible use of teaching resources, will you take stock of these grants to identify any duplication of resources? In paragraph 23, when it comes to requiring more qualifications from nets, this is indeed good. We do need professional teachers. They actually target non-local teachers who don't speak English as their first language. A bachelor degree in any discipline from a Hong Kong university or equivalent, do we have a sufficient pool of prospective teachers if we put in place such a requirement? I'd like to know if there is any focused inspection, lesson observation, all-round inspection included in the assessment of teachers. Will there be lesson observation arrangements like any other teachers? Thank you.
Secretary, on whether this new grant will overlap with other existing grants. Take the English subject. There are different grants: subject grants, class grants. Various grants can be deployed in buying services or for hiring additional teaching assistants. For our new proposed approach, when a school does not have a net or native English-speaking teacher, that money can be deployed flexibly to hire someone who also speaks English as their first language that school will simply be hiring such a teacher through a different route, so there will be no overlapping. We give a grant instead of the net post so that the schools will be able to form a larger English panel where there may be a net or other local English teachers or English teaching assistants, or the school can choose to buy services for, say, English grammar classes that will help provide diverse learning experiences for students. But our proposal will allow schools to form such a panel. Now, on the qualifications, based on the current net scheme, there was no requirement like this before. But as times change, things have changed. 20 years ago, we were short of local English teachers who had such qualifications. But now, our local English teachers now come with much higher qualifications. That's why we believe NET should also meet the same requirements. And we're not just saying qualifications from local universities. We can also allow qualifications equal to a degree granted by a local university or an equivalent training, say a qualification of teaching English as a foreign or second language. Now, on the third question, we assess the success by a variety of means, such as case studies, surveys. At primary and secondary schools, we carried out 2 to 3 assessments in different years. Each exercise took 2 years, so we went really into great depth for each assessment. Next, Mr. Rock Chen. Chairman, can I ask the Education Bureau whether they have the figures where they have compared the performance of students between schools that have NET and schools that have not taken part? Do we see any difference in the performance of students? Now, AI is becoming widely adopted these days. So for English teaching, for the purpose of encouraging interaction, can the Education Bureau encourage the use of artificial intelligence during class? Say, getting students to talk to an AI-based program in English. Can we add such elements into classroom teaching? Secretary. Mr. Rock Chan's question is whether we have done any compare and contrast studies for all eligible public sector primary and secondary schools. For primary schools with more than 6 classes, they have their NET on whether there's any change in the English proficiency of their students. Now, a student's language proficiency is the function of many factors. A NET is one factor. The curriculum also plays a role, and then the chance to use the language in the community is also a factor. So we take a holistic view. You cannot just look at a single factor, but overall, having a NET at a school encourages students to speak English, because a NET does not speak the local language, and students are encouraged to speak English. And that's a key way to develop students' English proficiency. Now, on teaching English, whether we have adopted AI, yes, we have, because AI has been moving fast in recent years. In teacher training, we have also stepped up AI. That's why in teaching English, AI is adopted in many ways. That's why we're saying we have to move with the times by reviewing this NET scheme. Thank you. Next, Mr. Chu Kwok. A few questions for me. First, under the new approach, a net will not get the medical allowance passage, and also the gratuity. Has the EDB assessed whether this new approach will remain attractive to NET? Will that mean schools can no longer hire NETs because NETs are not attracted by the new scheme? Now, under the new proposal, schools will be able to purchase services, and a supplier will be able to hire NET instead. When you contract out net services, and then there will be tendering, and the lowest bidders win. So in such a case, will that mean pay insecurity for net? And in the end, only the suppliers reap the benefits. Will that happen? Now, nets who wish to pursue a career in Hong Kong can become a permanent teacher, but some nets have expressed their concerns to me because they are worried that with a lower pay, they may not wish to become or join the permanent teaching force. So given these concerns, what response does the EDB have? And when a net becomes a permanent teacher, will that affect the promotion prospects of local English teachers? Secretary. So we're trying to merge the gratuity with the RI retention incentive into a single gratuity. Actually, that would mean no change in the pay for the teacher because right now, teachers get 5% of the gratuity plus 5% of the RI retention incentive. Under our new proposal, we start with 10% as the contractual gratuity. By the time the net get the third contract, they get 10% of the gratuity plus the 5% RI under the old system. But the new proposal will be 15%. So net will get the same pay in the future as under the existing system. Now, will that lead to hiring difficulties for schools? And we have looked at the recent years' recruitment figures. The figures have held steady. The attrition rate have been in the single digit, meaning at a low level. So we are confident that the greater flexibility we're proposing will not affect the number of nets in Hong Kong. Now, on getting contractors to hire teachers, there is an established procedure in place. We want stability for schools. You hire nets from out of town. Schools cannot tell whether such a teacher can adapt to life in Hong Kong. And if this net switches school, there will be a disruption for the school. But when a school hires a net through a supplier, the supplier will be able to find a replacement net if the previous net leaves during a school year. So getting a supplier actually brings stability to the school. Because in that case, one net leaves, the supplier can help out by finding a replacement. By raising the qualifications requirement, we want to enable nets here to be able to stay here and become part of the permanent teaching force, and that would mean a larger teaching force in Hong Kong. When a net stays here for 7 years, they can apply to become a permanent resident, and they will become a local resident, and that will mean a larger teaching force, and that will be good for education in Hong Kong. Thank you. Ms. Lilian Kwok. I want to ride on a question from Mr. Chu Kwok Kang. When you give schools the option to turn the net post into a grant, will that make the package less attractive to net? Now, from what I've heard, teachers generally support this proposal. Schools welcome the flexibility. Now I have a question. Now, we have just heard about this $200,000 scheme on English proficiency, but that is not a large amount when you want to achieve something. Can we combine the $200,000 with this net grant? Say a school opted for this grant instead of a net, but then at some point the school changes its mind. Can we let the school change their mind? Can they reverse course? Is there such flexibility built into the proposal? And for this net grant, will we be keeping an eye on how things change? The point about the net scheme is to create this language environment, as Mr. Lok has mentioned. But when you have a net grant instead, we have excellent English teachers in Hong Kong, and schools may hire more local English teachers. Will that affect this English learning environment at schools? When will this new proposal be reviewed to see how schools are doing under the new proposal, Secretary? Schools get to pool the $200,000 English proficiency scheme with the net grant, so that schools can form a larger English teaching team. Through collaboration, schools can enhance their English teaching and learning environment by merging or pooling these resources. And schools do get to reverse course, but they have to reverse course only after a school year ends. So schools go for an option 1 year, they have to wait for the next school year before changing their mind. Now, on the language learning environment, whether schools will use the net grant to hire local English teachers instead. Now, the point is that the new net grant will still be used to hire native English speakers. All that would change is greater flexibility in hiring speakers of English as their native language. There are families speaking English as their mother tongue in Hong Kong. We want to get these English speakers to be able to contribute to this English learning environment in Hong Kong. Sorry, I have a follow-up question. So the new grants will be for hiring people who speak English as their mother tongue. There are second or third generation from expat families, or there are people who spend more than a decade pursuing studies overseas. Those are Hong Kong residents, they come back. Do they also count as teachers who speak English as their mother tongue? Do they qualify for certain grants? Do schools get to use the grant to hire them? When we say native speaking English teachers, we're not looking at nationalities. We're simply looking at the proficiency. We're talking about someone who speaks English with native proficiency. Mr. Lam Chen Sing. Thank you, Chairman. My understanding is that NETs and local English teachers split their tasks. They do different things. NETs teach 20 sessions of classes per week. We should make the most of NET's strengths, meaning we want NETs to talk to students more often. The point is to allow students to talk to an expat in a real-life setting so that students become more confident in speaking English. That's the point of doing this. So the NETs are not simply here to replace local English teachers or taking out the administrative work at schools. Giving NETs less administrative work may be a way for us to let NETs teach more classes per week. Can we do that? Because that may be a more efficient way forward. Each school will get $1 million. And each year you need $700, $800 million to cover the grants. Now, I don't know how the ADB measures its success. Right now, it's fair. Every school gets the resources. For schools or students at the more middle class level, those students can have access to private tutorial classes where they also get access to expats. Those middle class students already get other opportunities to talk to expats. They speak English. So squeezing in an extra class with a net may make little difference for those middle class students. But for grassroots families, students from those classes may rarely get an opportunity to talk to an expat. Because grassroots families cannot even afford a foreign domestic helper where a child can talk to an English speaker. So can we allow more class time for students from grassroots families? I know some schools benefit not just from the net grant or a net post. Those schools actually hire an extra net. But the fees are borne or apportioned among parents, and that means an extra $2,000 from each parent. The government is going to ask the 2,500 student grant. So now with the grant gone, the grassroots families may decide to discontinue paying the extra fees for more exposure to net. So what will the government do about this?
Secretary, can nets take up more teaching classes, take up more class teaching duties? Well, they are responsible for creating language learning environment at schools. They could teach with local teachers. Some nets hold reading and speaking classes in primary schools. They focus on speaking classes. At secondary schools, 95% of nets teach speaking classes. For speaking training, there are other activities where students will interact with nets. Say there are meal gatherings. There are also campus radios and so on. These are more vivid learning activities. This is making good use of net resources at schools. And the number of lessons is reasonable as well. Different schools should have regard to the students' background to adjust the level of fees. Well, this is actually a basic allowance or a grant. For families with special needs or for non-Chinese speaking families, we provide extra grants. We don't reduce the grants that are normally given to students or schools. Just now, Mr. Lam mentioned taking on extra nets and that the fees are shared among parents. In this day and age, do we still need nets when students come from good family backgrounds? Say member mentioned AI. Students can chat with AIs as well. Well, for human-to-human interactions, when students speak to nets, they automatically speak in English. Nets bring together with them their own cultural background. This is what AI chatbots cannot provide. And that is different from simply teaching speaking in class. That adds an extra cultural aspect to the teaching of nets. Next member, Mrs. Regina Ip. Thank you, Chairman. The reform was mentioned first by the SCMP. Some nets expressed concerns over the reduction in remuneration packages, but actually they are enjoying very good remuneration packages. Not just nets, but local teachers enjoy much better remuneration packages comparing with the UK and the US. Nets are different from our English teachers actually. My English teachers graduated from local universities. I wasn't taught by any nets. I was taught by local English teachers. They could be as great if they're hardworking enough. That's why I've always been having reservations about the functions of nets. Just now, the secretary said students will be exposed to different cultural backgrounds with nets. Some nets come from Ireland, Russia, and Canada. Well, so which kind of English or which type of English are students learning with nets coming from different cultural backgrounds? When nets approach me, they are actually asking for better remuneration packages, but then actually they are already enjoying very good remuneration packages. If all the powers and decisions are in the hands of the principal, would they be too subjective? Will human factors be at play? Secretary, thank you, Mrs. Regina A, for her questions. Well, principals will take into account objective factors when choosing the new grant or not. Net teachers are employed on a 2-year employment contract. And towards the end of the contract, principal can discuss with nets whether to extend a contract or to renew the contract or not. When it comes to the net grant, we want to provide flexibility for schools to make good use of resources to create a better language learning environment. Nets can work together with teaching assistants. I agree with Mrs. Ip. Nets don't just come from the UK or the US. In the world of English, English is a lingua franca for many countries, so nets don't necessarily come from the UK or the US. But then the English language is used as the main language for communication. A lot of people in the world speak English. A lot of them have the first language proficiency, but they don't necessarily come from these countries as I mentioned. I'd like to supplement Mrs. Ip. The secretary said 2 years later the principal might not renew the contract with nets. But then will principals actually not engage nets after hearing from local English teachers? Well, if principals don't engage in nets, then the school won't be eligible for getting the net grant. So the schools cannot get the net grant without engaging a net. We just have 20 minutes more, so please use your time well, 4 minutes each. Mr. Dennis Long. Thank you, Chairman. Whether secondary or primary schools, they do want to make flexible use of resources having regard to their school circumstances. With the net scheme, we want to engage native English speaking teachers in order to enhance the level of spoken English among students. Schools can engage English language support services or engage in that. Say in paragraph 23, the requirements seem to be not as strict. A teacher needs to study in a discipline relevant to the English language. However, in paragraph 23, a teacher only needs to obtain a bachelor degree in any discipline from a local university. After that, the teacher only needs to take a PGDE or a TESOL or TEFL qualification and a valid IELTS results of overall band score of 7.5. Are the requirements not as strict? We do want to have NETs who speak good English, who have a high level of English proficiency. I'm not saying the students in Hong Kong don't have good English proficiency, but then NETs teach in Hong Kong for a reason. How can we ensure a certain level of teaching for NETs? Now schools are permitted to engage English learning support services. Do schools know how to engage appropriate English learning support services? When they need to dismiss some workers, will the Education Bureau provide more support in relation to the employment ordinance? Will the Education Bureau hold more talks or seminars so that schools or school heads will have more information in this regard? Then, school heads will not be affected by employment issues arising from the engagement of English learning support services. Well, the requirements are actually the same, but then we have increased the requirements for NETs on the scheme. For the requirements with the NET scheme, the requirements are actually the same. We didn't require less from NETs. We do have a talk for schools, but I'd like to point out the major differences between engaging a NET and engaging English learning support services is that in the case of when schools engage English learning support services, that doesn't constitute an employment relationship between the worker and the school. To schools, they will find it easier to engage a NET that is suitable for the school. We mainly want to provide more flexibility for schools. Next member, Professor Lau Chi Pang. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. It's about the enhancement of the implementation of the NET scheme I supported. Just now, Mrs. Regina Ib brought up a point, and indeed, it is a cause for concern. The intention of the NET scheme is that for local students in Hong Kong, they don't have a lot of opportunities to be exposed to the English language. They don't have a lot of time to speak to English native speakers. So in the past, students bought the TV set and then listened to English shows all day. The purpose was to create an all-English learning environment. In relation to the enhancement of the net scheme, when we engage in net, the grant is used for a school to engage in net. Or teaching assistant is engaged using the grant. So it's all about paragraph 16. Manpower resources are tailor-made to better meet the students' needs having regard to the school circumstances. Like me, I'm speaking in the flesh in the council. We have tablets, we have mobile phones. We are talking to a non-human actually. Today, we are living in an era of digitalization. When we learn a foreign language, do we still need to rely on one single native speaking English teacher with a lot of classes, a lot of students in a school? Is it out of proportion? Can students still benefit from this arrangement? Can a net grant be spent on AI, on machines? Say when we engage one net, then we spend the rest of the grant on using machines to help students to learn English, average 20 lessons a week. That is what is provided in the paper. In this new era, without nets, we don't. Well, Professor Lau, please leave some time for the administration to reply. Well, for secondary and primary school students, they speak very good Putonghua. We have nets, we have Putonghua teachers. Can we study the mode of teaching Putonghua in local schools? Can we apply the teaching methodology of teaching Putonghua to the teaching of English?
Hi.
Secretary. The net grant can be used for procuring services on top of hiring a net. But the net grant is not there to replace the net scheme. It's there to give schools greater flexibility. As the member suggested, greater adoption of AI-based solutions. If schools have the resources left after pooling the resources, they can spend the resources on those solutions. Now, on language learning environment, language learning hinges on many factors. You cannot narrow down things down to a single factor and single out a single factor. Now, we have only 11 minutes left for this item. Does any other member wish to speak on this item? If not, I will draw the line after Mr. Michael Teen speaks. Thank you, Chairman. I used to chair the Scholar Standing Committee on Language Education and Research. The central authorities have commented on how we should be aligned with global practice, how we should deepen international exchanges. With the NET scheme in place for many years, I am not particularly impressed by the English proficiency of our local graduates. We put in place the NET scheme back then because we wanted more exposure to English for our students. So there was a time when we allowed anyone who spoke English in because we lacked the language learning environment back then. Now our local English teachers have to multitask. They have to do a variety of things. And then we have these nets. I think local English teachers will be indignant, aggrieved, because those nets don't have subject knowledge, but they get so many benefits. The world has changed. So with the pay we can offer now, we should be able to hire nets who also specialize in teaching English. We need such teachers. If we can get more such teachers, we can truly improve the English proficiency of our students. So I welcome this proposal. And I also want to see whether we can even drop the net grant option. Our local English teachers are just as good as any net. Why offer such generous benefits for net? Unless, of course, the net have something extra to offer. So we should get it right with the net scheme. We need someone who truly fits the bill before we offer to hire someone on net terms. So either we drop net or we make the net scheme the only option. Nets can become part of the permanent teaching force. They will be able to stay in Hong Kong for the long term. They can become the vice principal or principal. But now, we let anyone who speaks English, someone who can teach drama, they will remain an English teacher. Can you allow time for the government to give a response? So I want to get the sense of the government's thinking. Are there plans to drop option B, meaning dropping the net grant? We want to give schools greater flexibility with our proposal. Schools may end up opting for the net grant instead if that's what they choose, and we can move along that direction. Please be brief. So in the long run, so now we merge the RI and the gratuity, and then in the future, we also want to align the qualifications requirements between local English teachers and net. I'm saying you should drop option B. If you don't have a net who specializes in teaching English, you should let the local English teacher teach instead. So far we're keeping them for now. We keep the net scheme because the thinking behind scholars' recommendation was to create this language learning environment. We keep it for now. And then when we get an environment where you have English speakers everywhere, then we may no longer need the scheme. Professor Priscilla Leung. Back in 2019, we went on a visit to Shanghai. There was a software. It's a software created by 3 mainland residents. They went overseas, they came back. The software was listed, went online overseas, and it doesn't cost much in terms of the monthly subscription. Even school children in rural areas can subscribe for the app. The app can talk to you when you talk to the app, but that's 6 years ago. So I think that app must have moved It must have gone a long way. I know the founder of that app. To discuss the net scheme, we will need data to help us discuss the matter. We have many native speakers of English in Hong Kong. Phonics, drama, debate, interview skills. These skills can help. When I learned French, we loved the culture. I also majored in English literature. Grammar is dry stuff, but grammar matters. So I'm looking for some specific figures. At some schools, the finest teachers are Indian teachers. Their English is beautiful. And then there are foreigners, expats, who speak English. They simply speak English, that's all. So there are different approaches. One, you get everyone to speak the language. And there's another approach where you pick up the real hard skills. We picked up the hard skills in terms of the grammar. So I'm saying, can we use big data? Some people may have a job. They're not teachers, but they can spend 2 hours at the English corner at the school. So you don't have to hire a full-time net. So can we do something along those lines? We don't have to give up on nets. Nets can play a role. Children love to talk to nets. So how do we get more people to help out with English learning? Secretariat. That's one of the reasons we're proposing the net grant as an option. With the grant, schools will get options. The net grant is based on the midpoint salary of a GM or APSM. That money will be available to schools who take this option. Meaning, they can hire someone with the money based on the pay for a graduate, master, or mistress. If there's money left, the schools can hire part-time teaching assistants for, say, 2 hours. Schools can also procure services for someone who teach children how to sing, etc. So that would mean greater flexibility for schools. Next, Mr. Holden Chow. I've been following the discussion. I think the whole point is to give greater flexibility to schools. That's my observation. I have an idea. A school may opt for the new option, meaning the net grant, or stick to the existing option, the net scheme. At the end of the day, we want students to be able to talk to either a teacher or a teaching assistant who speaks English as their first language. That's to help students learn. That message should be made clear. Otherwise, some people may get the impression that we are dropping nets. That's not the case. We're simply giving greater flexibility to schools. Now, another point for me is for new nets, they will have to meet new requirements. They have to complete certain programs and they have to hit a certain grade with an exam. Some teachers are very good at talking to students. that skill helps students learn English. I wonder if this skill will be taken into account by the authorities. Now, for a native speaker of English, they may not have completed a certain specialized program. But in certain language learning environments, you know it helps when a native speaker gets to talk to students. We're not living in an Anglophone country. We don't get to talk to an English speaker on the street. But having such native speakers of English may make a real difference. I'm just wondering if teachers with this kind of skill will be considered.
到啦，其實
Secretary, thank you. As Mr. Holden Chow said, we don't plan to replace net resources. Instead, we aim to provide schools with greater flexibility. Rest assured, we still have nets, but then we provide different methods to engage a net. Regarding requirements for such teachers, as they're responsible for interacting with students, including training the listening skills and speaking skills of students, students will have to learn from these teachers. That's why the communication skills of a teacher is very important in the recruitment exercise. Right now, we have around 850 nets in Hong Kong. Do you have a breakdown of the qualifications, year of service, and such information for us? If yes, please provide us with such information. Regarding the attrition rate of nets, it's been stabilized from a double digit to single digit, 8% for secondary schools and 6% for primary schools. Will ETOs advertise to recruit more nets for schools? This will ease the administrative load on schools in Hong Kong. Will we be also enhancing efforts to attract more nets? We want to attract teachers who can really teach instead of teachers who can simply speak fluent English. In the Special Finance Committee meetings last year, as some members mentioned as well, government expenditure on nets spent a total of $890 million in 2021 to 2022, and in 2024 to 25, the figure will increase to $1 billion. For primary schools, the provision is about 900,000 and 1 million for secondary schools. Will the government only proceed with the old proposal instead of going with the new proposal? Secretary, thank you. We do have a breakdown for the year of service and the age of nets. Regarding nationality, as I mentioned, we don't determine the level of English for a net simply based on his or her nationality. That's why we don't have a breakdown of their nationality. As the attrition rate is stable now, when it comes to attracting talents with greater flexibility, we not just recruit from overseas. At the same time, there are people who speak English as their first language in Hong Kong. When they have leisure time, they can take part in the teaching duties at school. We do keep a close watch on the situation. We act as a gatekeeper. Regarding the funding, we are trying to improve the arrangements. As the salary for nets As the new grant is benchmarked against the midpoint salary of APSM and GM in primary and secondary schools respectively. After the arrangements are fine-tuned, then the arrangements will also improve. Second round, Mr. Chu Kwok-kong, 1 minute. Under the new grant, the passage allowance, medical allowance, are they no longer available, save for regular permanent teachers? Will the promotion prospects and the recruitment of local teachers be affected? For passage allowance, it's available for NETs whose normal place of residence is established as being outside Hong Kong and is not a mandatory allowance given to NETs. With more NETs, would that affect local English teachers? Well, I believe not so. NETs will only enrich our pool of English teaching teacher force, and they will work together with local English teachers for a better effect. Thank you. Let's move on to the next agenda item. Agenda item number 5, implementation of life planning education. Members, please refer to LC paper CB bracket 385/2025 bracket 03. I now invite government representatives to join us. Members who would like to speak, please press the button to request to speak. We have with us Dr. Jeff Z, Undersecretary for Education, and Mr. Brian Chang, Principal Education Officer Kowloon from the Education Bureau. Undersec, whenever you're ready. Thank you. The Education Bureau has all along been attaching great importance to the implementation of life planning education, LPE. We enhance teachers' professional training, professional support, and promote business-school partnership. We support schools in the implementation of LPE. We help students to identify a career that they'd like to pursue. Schools attach a lot of importance to LPE as well, as we observed. A wide variety of activities are conducted to help students to identify their career aspirations. The Education Bureau has already implemented the policies as mentioned in 2022 Policy Address. We have already launched the Business School Partnership Program, BSPP, to cover more industries. In the long vacations of schools, the Holiday Work Experience Program is launched to help students to identify their interest and so on. At present, over 570 organizations from the public sector as well as from the commercial sector have joined the scheme. The scheme is widely popular and well received by parents. Participants said that they had benefited a lot from the program. The Education Bureau has also implemented the 2023 Policy Address issues. Say the GPA Career Exploration Tours program was launched. Senior secondary schools students can take part in the scheme. They will have a better understanding of the industries in the GPA. They will also have a better understanding of the manpower needs in the GPA. They will know more about the interactions among different industries in the GPA. There are a total of 500 secondary schools and 300 schools. The Education Bureau will continue to encourage schools that haven't yet signed up for the program to do so. Then we can benefit all public sector and DSS, direct subsidy schools. Through the implementation of LPE, We have the life planning information website to provide information about LPE to students and parents. The My Life Planning Portfolio, which is an online learning system, helps students with identifying their interest in future careers. There is also the GBA corner to provide information about the GBA specifically. We'll continue to provide more information on the website. We have already set up district development network in a total of 18 districts across Hong Kong. We encourage the sharing culture among teachers. We also work with the Vocational Training Council, VTC, to hold different workshops. Manpower projections, manpower needs. Information like this will be provided. And we will also be enhancing LPE for senior primary school students. The Education Bureau will issue the framework of implementation strategies of life planning education, which is a supplementary document. In senior primary schools, LPE will be launched, and we will also launch the BSPP 2.0 to provide more career aspirations and activities for students. And that concludes my report about the information paper. We're glad to take questions from members. Thank you, Undersecretary. At 4:30, there will be another meeting after this one, so I'm not going to extend this meeting. The lineup: Professor Lau Chi Pang, Mr. Benson Look, Mr. Tang Fei, Mr. Lam Chin Sing, Mr. Kenneth Leung, Mr. Chu Kwok Kang, Mr. Dennis Leung, Deputy Chair, Ms. Lillian Kwok, and myself. 3 minutes questions and answer included for each member. First member, Professor Lau Chi Pang. Thank you. LPE has been implemented for a long time in Hong Kong. It wasn't started by us. It's actually being implemented all around the world. For LPE, we need to emphasize we all have our own pursuits. Say, I'm now 15 years old and 4 decades later, I'm going to reach 55, and we can actually predict our future. Say, Dr. Lam, he is in the medical field, but then we all can change after we graduate. The Department of Translation at university has seen a marked drop in the number of admission figures. Say for translation, it can be replaced by AI. As we can see in the paper, we are not exploring LPE in the era of digitalization or in the era of AI. In paragraph 9, that is the future directions of LPE, we need to enhance LPE at primary and secondary schools. Say one at the age of 9, 12, 13. They should enjoy campus life, especially for boys. Boys and girls are different in the sense that they become mature at different age. See, for boys, they want to have a happy campus life. Students need to acquire knowledge at schools. They need to stay curious, inquisitive at school. They don't need to think about what they want to do in the future. Do they want to become an accountant, They don't need to think about that at primary school. Well, I believe when you worked on the document, you hadn't yet DeepSeek yet. Naja hadn't yet come into being either.
A brief response from the Undersecretary, please. We do not have a crystal ball for what will happen in 20, 30 years' time. We don't even know what the world will be like in 5, 10 years' time. We cannot tell what emerging industries, what new jobs there will be. We have no crystal ball for any of that. Life planning education is about 3 things. 1, knowing yourself. 2, career exploration. And 3, career planning and management. There are different stages where you do different things. At the primary school, we foster the proper values, the right lifestyle, the right learning attitude. We try to dispel preconceived notions. We dispel myths about certain occupations. That's what we do at the primary stage. As we can see in the community, you may be pursuing studies in one area and you may end up with a career in a different field. That's what life planning education is like. We want students to keep an open mind. We want students to be able to find an area of development that suits their interests and aspirations at different times. Next, Mr. Benson Look. Simply put, LPE is about helping students find out which field they want to pursue for their career. This is about life planning, and this also means much for talent nurturing for the community. Now, on success, we rely on the feedback of students after they take part in an event. Teachers may lead students on a tour, and then we rely on the feedback from the teacher. Are there other tools for us to measure the success of life planning education? And we can also look at how LPE helps our community's development. We don't have a crystal ball, but we do have the manpower projection. Let's look at the 2023 manpower projection. We have 8 centers as our role. All such industries are short of talent. 1, INT, and 2, aviation. We are short of those kinds of workers. So can we pursue our LPE based on what we need, meaning the kind of talent we need, so that the LPE can better suit the needs of the community? Undersecretary. In measuring the success of the LPE, schools measure their own success. There's a mechanism for schools to keep doing a better job. The Education Bureau conducts inspections. The Bureau gathers professional input from schools on LPE and then assesses how schools are doing. Schools management takes LPE seriously. They commit appropriate resources, and that includes manpower resources, the environment, etc., to support life planning education. The ADB has also commissioned a local university to review the success of LPE at local schools. We have also looked at the delivery of the policy and also the business school partnership program, and the results have been positive. On Mr. Lok's second question, how we bring together the LPE and our manpower projection, we have worked on that. We tell teachers and students about the industries that are short of workers. There are different measures. For post-secondary education, there is the SSSDP. Some industries are short of talent. So in those cases, the government offers extra subsidies for students pursuing studies in those fields. So that's the way for the government to send the message telling everyone that we need workers for those industries. We offer matriculation or articulation counseling as part of LPE. So we encourage teachers to tell students about industries that are short of workers. Thank you, Chairman. Next, Mr. Tang Fei. Thank you, Chairman. I have an idea. Our LPE covers 3 elements. I think what matters the most is we have to define the literacy of LPE, because I don't think the elements listed are the same as literacy. The Undersecretary mentioned career exploration, career planning and management. Students at different levels have widely different conceptions of career exploration or LPE. And when we lump everyone together and we take a broad brush approach, that will make little difference. Paragraph 5 says the government commissioned the Education University on a consultancy. The stress here is that the point is that secondary school students are too much occupied with their studies, so they're less keen to take part in work experience programs. But the conceptions of LPE varies wildly for students from different levels. For middle-class families, students have parents or uncles, aunties. Those students are influenced by their parents or aunts, uncles. They hear about career opportunities, they go on internships, they get to study overseas. But then there are grassroots families. They rarely get to venture out of town, meaning their exposure is way more limited. So we have to first define the literacy for LPE. We also need a study on the kind of education students get and the variations and the different conceptions students have of LPE as a result of the different forms of education they get, because schools offer general education only. Mr. Tang, you have limited time. And we also have to find a way to address the class-specific divides in LPE because of the class backgrounds of students. Undersecretary. LPE needs to take into account the differences in the background of students. We have the Strive and Rise program, launched under the current term government. PolyU has indicated success of this scheme. Students become more confident, they take a greater interest in different industries. Thousands of students benefit from Strive and Rise. That means LPE should be more than just about schools. This community-wide approach, the input from the government have made a real difference. As for schools, we take into account students' background as we take forward LPE. Thank you. Mr. Lam Chen Sing. Paragraph 8 is on support for non-Chinese speaking students. Students from ethnic minorities may need LPE more than local students do, because students from EM groups may be influenced by preconceptions of their families. Say they may think they are destined for a job as a delivery worker or a construction site worker. But the second generation or third generation of these families may be better educated and they may be better motivated. We have a construction association of Nepali workers. The children of these workers are reluctant to become construction workers. Some prefer to work at the airport. They are confident in their English. They simply worry about their command of Putonghua. So for students from an EM background, how do we offer them bespoke LPE? That also matters. Now for LPE, can we also teach students about the soft skills for the workplace? Some people think our service sector is not doing a good job in terms of courtesy. Well, that may only apply to a fraction of workers, but I'm saying, can we also cover workplace courtesy? When we teach students, can we also teach students about occupational safety so that they come to the workplace with a strong awareness of these concepts? Thank you. When LPE was launched, we launched trial schemes for non-Chinese speaking students. As Mr. Lam said, we taught students from NCS backgrounds the different options they get. We have the teaching materials online. The EDB has also commissioned NGOs to help NCS by offering school-based support and specific career exploration activities. We want NCS to also be able to find what they're interested in and plan for their future. Our school-based support program also provides training for teachers and parents on workers' manners. We start the education at a young age. We give primary students proper values. We teach them about a good lifestyle. On the courtesy campaign mentioned by the member, now, we incorporated that element in our values education. That is, courtesy was incorporated in our drive. We can also work on occupational safety with our partners as well. Mr. Kenneth Leung. I see grants, work experience programs, BSPP, etc. Now my questions. Some schools may have more students from EM backgrounds or more NCS, and they may have different needs, meaning the need for LPE varies from one school to the next. So specifically, what support is available for students with more NCS or students from EM backgrounds? Would there be specialized LPE support? Now, paragraph 19 mentions this website, One-Stop Life Planning Information website. The information is rather scattered. All that I see is a bunch of PDF files. Young people take personality tests online. They click a few pages and then they get a result. So can we put up such a personality test online such that students can complete the test themselves? Now I turn to the Greater Bay Area Career Exploration activity. Now this program covers a few emerging industries. biomedicine, new energy, etc. Are students simply expected to submit a report, or is there follow-up? Apart from visiting businesses, can we also arrange senior secondary students to engage in exchanges with, say, vocational training institutes?
Thank you, Chairman. For support for NCS students or for students with special education needs, first of all, there is an LPE grant for schools. Depending on the number of students with SENs, the funding amount will be different. For SEN students, the life planning education is a little bit different. There is support scheme for SEN students. Schools can make appropriate use of such resources to organize different activities to help SEN students to identify their interest and to get more information about the workplace. In relation to self-assessment, there are career assessment tools as well. For suitable tools, say when students can use these career assessment tools to know more about themselves, information can be provided to students. But as we discussed just now, industries are developing, as is the world. Students can use the information as a reference. But then in society, there are emerging industries at the same time. Mr. Leung just now mentioned the GBA Career Exploration Tours program. After the end of the tours, schools can lead students to perform self-reflection. Say in school assemblies, students can be encouraged to share what they have learned during the activities. They can share their experience with other students, and at the same time, more students will have a better idea of different industries in the GBA. We have sister schools exchanges, and we also have exchange tours with mainland cities. Please be brief, understand. We want to help different students to plan their life with different resources. Thank you, Mr. Chu Kwok-kang. Thank you, Chairman. The GBA Career Exploration Tours program is indeed a good one. It helps students to have a better understanding of the opportunities in the GBA. There are different themes of the program, but I believe different themes can complement one another. I'd like to know whether the administration will combine these two different themes. Apart from reports, can the business sector work with the schools to enable students to exchange with those outside Hong Kong? Then students outside Hong Kong will also have a good understanding of Hong Kong, and Hong Kong students will take the perspective of the GBA to identify their interest. I'd like to ask about the certificate course on life planning education in primary schools. A total of 21 hours. This is indeed a good course. Will there be an indicator or a requirement, say at least 2 teachers in each primary school will have to take the course? This will enhance the implementation of LPE in local primary schools. Undersec. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chu. On the consolidation of different themes, we are working towards this direction as well. We are distributing different grants for schools, and there is indeed room for consolidation. In relation to mainland exchange tours, there are different types of such tours. Say we have sister schools. There are also different exchange tours or programs under some subjects in primary schools. Say the CS subject. About 2 weeks ago, I was on an exchange tour. I led students to visit some enterprises in the mainland. Students have a better understanding of the development of enterprises in the mainland. So simply put, yes, there is indeed room for consolidation, and we'll work towards this direction as well. Regarding business school partnership, we encourage collaboration and interaction between these two sectors. We will also be adding more partners to the BSPP in relation to the implementation of LPE at primary schools. As I mentioned, all senior primary school students have LPE elements. Thank you. Next, Mr. Dennis Leung, Deputy Chair. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to ask the Education Bureau. I want more information from the Bureau. There are LPE initiatives in both primary and secondary schools. How many hours in total? How many types? What kind of events were held? I'd like to have more information from the Bureau. Sometimes schools will briefly explain a career to students. When students want to learn more, will there be advanced courses to give students more information about the career? Some students said that schools didn't provide all information to students. Some students needed to find out more information on their own. Did the Bureau organize more courses for teachers so that students will also benefit? The paper mentioned BSPP 2.0. What industries are covered? Isn't there a diversity of industries? What industries aren't covered? We have the retail sector, F&B, construction sector, and so on. For industries having a manpower shortage, will there be more partners to be added to the BSPP 2.0? Thank you. Undersec. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Dennis Leung. On the provision of more courses, we don't organize all events under the theme of LPE. Say for science teachers, the Education Bureau worked with different institutions as well as Sabaport to provide courses on teacher training in relation to INT development. Some startups are involved in our training. Teachers have a better idea of the development of AI and INT. STEAM teachers then will have more information about the development of different industries in Hong Kong. When we have more of such information, we will upload more information to the Life Planning Information website. Over 300 items covering 21 industries, including emerging industries and different types of work, is available online. qualifications, requirement, training, and so on. All this information is uploaded online. We'll keep reviewing the information. When there are updates, I will upload it online. Next member, Ms. Lillian Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. We need to help students to plan their life at an early stage. Emotions, life education, all these should be included in LPE. At secondary schools, the Education Bureau launched a pilot scheme 2 years ago. They worked with VTC on the provision of courses. Secondary school students can learn more about different industries. Now, 2025, we're halfway through the 10-year program. What is the effectiveness of the program? Quite many secondary schools in society provide QF courses. These schools provide certificate courses. So will you consider combining these courses so primary and secondary school students will develop vocational education? Regarding VPAT certificates, which started in 2023 to 24, it is a pilot scheme covering VTC and other institutions. Secondary 3 students have another revenue after completion of the certificate course. So after the completion of the Hong Kong DSE, students will be able to obtain qualifications that are equivalent to level 3 of the qualification framework. Then students can pursue VPAT. In some schools, some schools want to provide some courses in conjunction with private organizations. So we have a task force. We promote VPAT, and this is indeed an element of life planning education. On the life planning information website, there is a dedicated area which introduces VPAT. We want to enhance students' understanding of VPAT and will continue to work on this front. Ms. Lillian Kwok? Well, probably you can explore working more with the qualifications framework. That is, the Hong Kong CAVQ. Yes, we'll look into it. Thank you. Next, Mr. Stanley Ng. Thank you, Chairman. In relation to the effectiveness of LPE, what does the administration think? What is their assessment? We want to help young people. We want to help students. For those who are not sure what they want to do in the future, we want to help them. Some may think they cannot put what they have learned into practice in the future. And regarding the results of life planning education, it hinges a lot on students. and we need to do as much as we can. But that is not enough. We need to motivate students to plan for their life. They need to contribute to society as well as the country based on their strengths. We need to give them guidance. This is an important driving force to help students to plan their life. So with administration, implement LPE from this direction. Otherwise, students cannot really implement LPE. Thank you.
Undersecretary, thank you. I fully agree with Mr. On his point. Indeed, we have to get students to set their own goals. They have to be able to plan their own future. LPE is an ongoing process. A student leaves secondary school. LPE or life planning continues. LPE or life planning does not end with leaving a certain stage. There are different stages in life planning. We take it one step at a time. We start at primary school. Some wonder if we're starting too early. That's not the case. At senior primary school, we want students to find out about themselves. So here there is values education. We want students to learn about different occupations and learn about what they are into. We don't just stop at a certain stage when it comes to life planning. A student goes through senior primary, junior secondary, and then senior secondary stages, and then the student moves on to university or other forms of post-secondary education. Life planning continues. And we need this whole school approach to LPE. LPE needs to be part of education as a whole, and that includes values education. Professor William Wong. Thank you, Chairman. The two sessions this year mentioned nurturing and fostering emerging industries of the future. So we should be looking at emerging industries. We're driving AI education. Emerging industries will feature AI heavily. Now, workers will need different skills and different forms of literacy. Today, the Privacy Commissioner just issued a list on the use of AI at work. So let's also teach that to students. I've seen university graduates who work as interns. The problem I have come across is that the instructors are not ready. Student interns get into a row with their employers. So when that happens, what can the instructor do to smooth things over? So here, training for instructors is also needed and important. Now, I turn to the GBA Career Exploration Program. Have we considered setting up regional networks in the GBA with vocational training institutes in the GBA? Have we considered setting up an exchange platform for instructors? Have we considered setting up learning circles to support life planning education as an effort to foster further interconnections in terms of talent with the rest of the GBA? Undersecretary, the member brought out the Privacy Commissioner. I have also read the report. It's about promoting digital literacy. We're making a real effort to promote digital education, and one key task for our working groups is to enhance the digital literacy and skills of students, and that includes handling data as well as proper use of data-based tools. And that will be a skill expected of students in the future. The sister schools are a great platform. There are sister schools networks between Hong Kong schools and their peers in the GBA. The learning circle as a concept can be promoted through the sister schools initiative. I'm the last one to speak for this item. As Mr. Stanley said, we have to start young with LPE, and we have to go big. We have a huge labor crunch, 180,000 by 2028. Our unemployment rate is only 3%, but then 60 or 70,000 jobs cannot hire people. We have many vacancies. We have BSPPs, holiday work programs, GBA career exploration tools. Vast resources have gone into these initiatives. How far will these measures go in getting workers for the jobs? Every year we have an LPE seminar. Paragraph 18 says, to make more effective use of resources, we will hold this event every 3 years instead of doing it as an annual event. Many members brought up AI in this rapidly evolving landscape. So how do we stay abreast of the rapid changes? And given strive and rise, can we set up something similar with LPE? We have the Family Planning Association, we have different alumni association, federation, parent-teacher associations. We need more events, not just about picnics. We should be looking at LPE, Undersecretary. Thank you. These ideas warrant our further exploration, such as getting more alumni associations and also parent-teachers associations about running mentor schemes. The question is whether we can have enough alumni from different industries, parents from different industries. Can we find enough such people from different industries to serve as mentors so that students can learn about developments in different sectors? The situation may vary from one school to the next. For the Education Bureau, we do have many work experience programs. So even when schools do not have such networks, the EDB will be able to hold events and students can take part in our programs on measuring the success of our efforts. On whether we can provide information on emerging industries, I think giving students the information will help. We don't have to wait for the LPE conference. Whenever we come across information that's useful, we can put that online. And then teachers in charge of LPE at schools can access the information right away. and also setting goals early on. I fully agree. We want students to want to contribute to the community, to our country. We want students to have this desire to serve our community. Everyone can play a role in the community. Whatever field they find themselves in, it's important that people find their goal. We want students to have this aspiration to serve the community, to serve their country. And this is part and parcel of the patriotic education and values education already at schools. It's part of this wider education. So we are done with the first round. Professor William Wong will speak for the second round. Let's do 1 minute. Please be brief in your question. I made this suggestion in my second point, and that is we have to manage the relations between the university and the company well, because the university has little control over the behavior of the student intern. That's something I want to highlight. So that's a point from Professor Wong. In response, we note his comment. Thank you. Next item. Any other business? Any other business for members? If not, I adjourn the meeting here. Thank you.